Nice to see you, Vassilis, and thank you for being with us today. Maybe we should start by just a short presentation so we know what is your background and who are you?
Yes, well, I am starting with my academic background. I am my main area of specialization is ethnopolitics and European politics, with an expertise in Central and Eastern Europe, especially the Baltics and the Balkans, and as it has been concretized more recently.
Excellent. So as we are going to talk about Vojvodina today, so can you tell us, it's a very difficult question, of course, can you tell us the few most important findings you reached during working on the book on Vojvodina, the first one you mentioned?
I have to mention here that my book on Vojvodina consists of three parts. It integrates part of my research work as part of my research work during my PhD at the University of Birmingham between 2000 and 2004. Then it also integrates another chunk from my postdoctoral research from, roughly speaking, from 2005 until 2010. And also, the final chapter was a brand new chapter that relied on the findings of my Marie Curie grant at the University of Tartu. So the most important findings, I think that it is a bit difficult to summarize, because my book consists in a historical overview, starting from the settlement of the arrival of Serbs in the region known as Vojvodina today, until the most recent developments, such as the impact of the refugee crisis on the new refugee crisis in Vojvodina between 2015 and 2017. So, what is it? It is quite. I will try to sketch out a few main findings. That Vojvodina is a richly diverse part of Europe, one of the most richly diverse parts of Europe in general, and also, I mean, of course, this may not become evident to the external observer. For example, I came across people who, looking at, people who looked at, for example, the demographics of Vojvodina in pure numbers, and they would tell me, yes, but how come? As we can see, the majority in Vojvodina is clearly Serbian. But this goes far beyond that, because there are the Serbian community in Vojvodina itself consists of different layers. There are the old Serbs, Starosedevci. There is also this branch who settled in as part of an organized migration after the Second World War, and also a smaller chunk after the First World War. And then there was a high degree of, and of course, there were also the most recent arrival refugees from the wars of succession in the former Yugoslavia in the 1990s. But another thing is very important is that apart from this fragmentation within the inside the Serbian majority, and even the formal touch, of course, nowadays is very difficult to say with precision who is exactly old settler, who is exactly colonist, but still there is some kind of if not just folkloric attachment to these macro identities. And of course, Vojvodina is one part of Europe, Southeastern Europe, where there are all these local minority communities. I mean, for example, it is still possible in Stara Pazova, for example, or Bački Petrovac, it is still possible to hear spoken Slovak, and people who may or also some other communities in the vicinity of Zrenjanin. And then again, it is also, there are some small ethnic Ukrainian communities who became also rather active recently in the aftermath of the war, and also small Czech communities, Ruthven communities. So all these realities that someone who visits Vojvodina and spends some time on these local, smaller communities, then they realize all this diversity that there exists behind the official demographics, and also the fact that Vojvodina during the days of the former Yugoslavia and up to date is one of the parts of former Yugoslavia where there has been multi-ethnicity, has been a living reality, mixed marriages in both urban and rural settlements. So this multi-ethnicity persists, and it is a very important feature of Vojvodina in terms of its which characterizes it is the main characteristic of Vojvodinian society up to date, I would say.
Very, very interesting. And one thing that I believe it should also be mentioned, it's because, I mean, we all have different identities in different ways. So, I mean, we're speaking here of national identities, but what about the regional Vojvodina identity that you actually also write about? Can you tell a few words about that, please?
Yes, because regional Vojvodinian identity is very much incorporated, is very much based on this pattern of multi-ethnicity. And it was concretized during the during the communist era, during the days of the second Yugoslavia, and but it still provides this rich multi-ethnic substratum, which very much which has sustained to it is very much to account for sustaining stability, interethnic stability, and social stability in general in Vojvodina, even during very turbulent times. Also, for example, Vojvodina being very near to the, Vojvodina sharing the rather similar pattern of social development to neighboring Slavonia, Eastern Slavonia, that was very much hampered by the war is in the early 90s. But the repercussions, although there were visible repercussions, for example, the arrival of ethnic Serb refugees in the first wave of ethnic Serb refugees all over, especially in Srem and Novi Sad. But then again, this did not, there was no direct repercussions such as similar, with the exception, of course, of unpleasant incidents such as the ethnic violence in Herkovci and other places in Srem, but overall there was no such widespread incidents of widespread violence in Vojvodina, despite its proximity to the war zones of Slavonia, and despite its richly multi-ethnic composition, and of course, despite the attempts by certain political actors to foment ethnic tension and capitalize on it in the province. But what is very interesting here is that as a result of its, many people get it. I mean, it is quite interesting for me when discussing with people who may be experts on Central and Eastern Europe. But when we think about Vojvodinian identity or the concept of Vojvodinian autonomy, that I wouldn't, that perhaps we can discuss later. But they focus on minority politics. They, for example, they always ask me, "Are you're talking about the ethnic Hungarians, right?" But no, I'm talking about, of course, ethnic. There is this notion of Vojvodinian identity, which is because of its multi-ethnicity. It is what makes it rather unique. It is different from Catalan regional identity, and also different from Basque regional identity, or different from regional identities in Italy. And this is what I claim in the final chapter of my book.